Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Radium and today I have another Terraria Calamity mod showcase for you regarding some brand new weapons added in the Rust and Dust update. There are a bunch of them and I only covered the ones specific to Draydons, like new laboratories. And I didn't realise how many other weapons there were added without that kind of class, I guess you could say. And so I decided I wanted to try checking them out. So I've got a bunch here. I don't know if this is all of them, but I've just chosen the ones which I think are really cool. I've gone for about 30, maybe coming up to 40 of them, and these are the ones I think are the most interesting. With that said, let's get into it. Starting off, we have the Yanmi's knife, I believe that's how it's pronounced. It does this single slash, which is incredibly slow. Like, I'm spam clicking, and it's like once every 3 seconds, maybe, if not longer. And it doesn't seem to do anything too interesting on first glance. See, it doesn't do much to the player, it doesn't do anything to me or him. I'm wearing quite a balanced loadout in comparison to last time, by the way, which I'll most likely change, but you see, it's not doing much. However, when you put it up against a boss, that's a very different story. I'm using cheat sheet to get the enemies in, just because it's a little bit more simplistic. So he'll fall down, but then we'll be able to test this thing out. See, the weapon does a lot more damage than it seems. The weapon applies this extremely powerful debuff, which does so much damage. Literally tagging him for 25 and it lasts for a long time. Additionally, you get this buff yourself called the Kami injection, which increases your defense, movement speed and damage. So, what seems like a pretty useless item is actually very interesting and kinda useful for early game. The only issue for this weapon is the crafting tree. This is actually a post-golem weapon, which is very bad, because it requires the Psycho Knife, which you need to defeat Plantera for, and getting it from the Solar Eclipse. You need Obsidian and Iron Bars, which are pretty easy to obtain. Then you need Plague Cell Canisters, which are dropped from post-golem enemies in the jungle. So as cool as it is, it's not really going to be used at all. And I still think it's a very interesting item to look at. The next item we have to look at is the Tyranny's End. This is a very interesting looking ranged weapon, which has extremely slow speed, but does 7,500 damage in a single hit. I'm using a very balanced loadout, pretty much a vanilla loadout, so it shouldn't really influence the testing all that much. So, it's basically a sniper rifle, that's all there is to it. But if you shoot the enemy, it does an effect similar to the Skull Masher, which surrounds the enemy in loads of shots and does a lot more damage than it should. So, with that said, the enemy I'm going to test this weapon out on is Dragon Folly, which I think is a good test for it. Let's get it in there. I'm using God mode for this, just to make things a little bit more simplistic. You'll see the bullet travels extremely quickly. There are no other effects, I don't think. It's just how fast it is, but that's enough to make it really desirable. If you're using Adrenaline, you're looking at 20,000 damage crit hits, and maybe coming up to 60,000 DPS. Additionally, it's an auto-firing weapon, which is really nice. A lot of weapons don't have those capabilities, actually. And we're pretty much done. So overall, this is a very cool weapon. Obviously enough, this is a very late game item. It's a combination of the Vortex Popper, the Golden Eagle, the Anti-Material Rifle, and 4 Auric Tesla bars, which means this is a post-Urine weapon. Which makes me slightly skeptical because it doesn't seem incredible, but it's a pretty cool weapon regardless, and I'd like to see how this would perform against a boss like Urine or Supreme Calamitous. The next item I have to review is a slightly earlier item. It's called the Marksman Bow. It does 57 range damage with very fast speed and very strong knockback, which fires 3 arrows at a time, and it converts wooden arrows into Jester's arrows. So it's an incredibly fast post-Plantera item, and it looks very cool, I have to say. It's one of my favourite sprite works from this update, in my opinion. Like, the bow itself just looks really cool. And in terms of DPS, it's not stellar, but then again, it is a pre-golem weapon, so 1100 DPS is not bad. That's outmatching the Terra Blade, for example. So that's not bad, honestly. The boss I'm going to try this one out on is Cryogen, as I feel like it's a pretty good comparison. So let's just see how it does. Okay. Since the Jester arrows are so incredibly fast, it works really well in an environment like this. And so it'll be definitely really good for targeting smaller enemies. As well as that, because all the shots are Jester arrows, which travel infinitely, it's obviously going to be good for worm bosses. Maybe this would be a viable weapon for maybe even Astrum Juice if you played your cards right. Despite maybe being a little bit difficult to do so. Let's see. And I love the Cryogen reworks, it looks really cool honestly. But this is going quite well. I think I'm going to end that there for the Cryogen fight. This weapon is incredibly simple to craft. All you need is 31 ectoplasm. And you've got this really cool bow. So if there's any aspiring rangers out there trying to get past Golem, then this is a weapon I definitely recommend checking out. The next weapon is an incredibly interesting one. It's called the Monstrous Knives. Yeah, sorry, I couldn't read the red font. So it does 7 melee damage with fast speed. But it has an incredibly useful property for a very early game weapon. It's basically a downgraded version of the Vampire Knives, which is incredible. So, starting off, you're not looking at good damage at all, in all honesty, but that's okay, because the main desirable property of this weapon is that it can heal the user. Additionally, it's not necessarily bad, it's just not effective in this kind of situation. So I've turned God mode off, so I'm going to deliberately take some damage, you know, or try to at least. Let me take this armor off actually. Okay, I've reduced my health a little bit thanks to the boss. Let's see how the life steal does. So it's only 1s and 2s by the looks of things, but that's more than enough for a life stealing weapon. And it doesn't do terrible damage for like a weapon you can get before you even defeat a boss, I think. So it's pretty cool. It's definitely a secondary weapon, like you'd back this up with maybe a Tendon Bow or a Star Fury, something early game like that. But it's a really fun item to use and I really like this. As you guys can see here, the crafting recipe is so incredibly simple. It's quite frankly 200 throwing knives, a life crystal, 5 lesser healing potions, and 10 victory shards, which you get from defeating the Desert Scourge, Synedrian, and the Aquatic Scourge. So it's not going to be in anyone's loadouts the second you get past the Desert Scourge, but it's still an incredibly cool item and one I'm very happy they added. The next weapon we have to review is called the Rubico Prime. This is another late game ranged weapon which does 4031 damage with snail speed, but apparently it's a sniper rifle burst, which is very interesting. I'm going to place a dummy down and we're going to see. Yeah, it is a burst. Okay, I can't prove it to you guys, but I only clicked once there. But it seems to fire 10 times. Yeah, it fires 10 times and then cancels out, so you'll need to click again. So for the most part, you won't need to click, but it is semi-automatic, so you will need to refresh it. And you're looking at maybe 11,000 DPS as well. This is another boss I'm going to test out on Dragon Folly, although I will need to definitely put God mode on for this one. Since the bullet is so fast, it's really good. And as you can see there, I did need to refresh it. It's not doing as well as I thought it would, in all honesty. I thought this would shred the Dragon Folly. And it's not doing that much. Additionally, it seems to lag the game quite a bit, which is unfortunate. And overall, it does not do that much damage, considering this weapon is very late game. This weapon is slightly before Yaren. You get this with the Pestilent Defiler, my apologies, I've never seen that weapon before. Dark Sun Fragments, which you get from the Solar Eclipse after you defeat Yaren for the first time. And Cosmolite Bars, which are dropped from the Devourer of Gods. So, it's a pretty strong weapon considering. I would say there are better alternatives for Yaren at the time. But maybe with the correct kind of ammo, that kind of like adjustment, it'll be really good. It doesn't actually seem to be affected by that kind of thing though. But those are my opinions on this. Pretty cool, but nothing spectacular. The next weapon I have to show you guys is one I'm incredibly excited to test out. It's called the Prismatic Breaker. This is a sword that does 1913 melee damage, with some very unique stats, and it has 2 different attacks apparently. So first of all, it has a charge up attack, which shoots a beam all the way across your screen. And it's similar to the last Prism, but much faster, and it follows your mouse perfectly, so you can spin it indefinitely. And the right click fires a beam from the sword, which is pretty damn cool. If we bring out a dummy, let's see what we're looking at in terms of damage. Okay, if you're using the beam, you're looking anywhere from 15,000 or 13,000 to 17,000, that kind of range. Looks pretty strong. And if you're using this, you're looking at significantly less damage, but you can also true melee it if you do this, which will allow you to get significantly higher damage scores. I'll be testing this weapon out on the Dragon Folly once again. Let's see the beam. Well, okay, this is a pretty strong weapon. Only issue is if you're used to using the Last Prism, it is very sensitive. But it is quite easy to use. Just very, very, It's almost in the way it's so easily controlled that it's oversensitive. And that I could see making it quite difficult to use. At least this projectile. Now let's try the beam out. I don't know if it has any unique properties. Okay, it pierces, but that seems about it. Yeah, it pierces. But there's no standout properties from it. Just pierce. Okay. I don't think I'm going to finish this fight, but that's an incredibly interesting weapon. In terms of crafting it, however, you are going to need Cosmolite bars, a Life Alloy, the Solstice Claymore, and the Cosmic Rainbow. So this weapon is actually a weapon you can use to fight Yaren for the first time, which makes it really interesting. I don't know whether the damage is actually high enough to do that, because looking at the DPS, there are options which you have available at the time, like the Galaxia, which are significantly stronger than this. But overall, it's still a very impressive weapon regardless. The next weapon I have to review is the Ultima. This is a bow which does 221 range damage, with insanely fast speed, and it fires a continuous stream of plasma bolts, which is kind of exciting. I don't know what this weapon means, but oh my god, okay. Whoa, this is a really, really cool weapon. You're looking at anywhere from 9,000 to 10,000 damage, and over time it starts shooting these rainbow beams out rather than just the projectiles. Oh no, the projectiles switch out completely for these rainbow shots. Okay. It's like a Last Prism bow, actually. That's a good comparison, because the damage increases over time, and it takes a second to charge, so it goes from 10,000 DPS all the way up to maybe 30,000. I'm going to try this on a slightly stronger enemy. I think I'm going to use it on the Devourer of Gods to see how it does. So, first of all, you'll see I'm struggling, because it doesn't shoot the beam straight away, which is kind of a bit sucky, but it's all good. Once the beams start going out, however, it does so much damage. They might even go through blocks. And then they start doing even more particle effects, which is really cool. I'm terribly sorry about the lag, but this is a really nice weapon. Judging by its performance against this, I'd say it's on par with the Fetid Emissaries, the Toxicant Twister, the Ghoulish Gouger, those kind of tier weapons. So that's pretty nice. The weapon itself is incredibly late game once again. It's crafted from the Pulse Bow, which you can get from the Travelling Merchant. You get the Laser Rifle, which is dropped from the Wall of Flesh, the Storm, which is dropped from the Stormweaver, the Astral Bow, which is crafted from Astral Bars after Astrum Deus is defeated, Cosmolite Bars, which you get from the Devourer of Gods, Exodium, which you get from the Sky after defeating the Moonlord, and Dark Sun Fragments, which are from the Solar Eclipse. So it's a pretty hefty crafting tree, but you get this incredibly powerful weapon, which is just so cool to look at in every single aspect. And I would heavily recommend getting this weapon for your next playthrough. Okay guys, there are two more weapons I now need to review. The first one, which is very significant, is the Final Dawn. This is a weapon that drops from Yaren, so it doesn't have a crafting recipe as far as I understand. It does 7,699 rogue damage, and it has different attacks. Starting off, we have a single swipe, which looks really cool. You need to charge the weapon up for a little bit. And additionally, if you hold up whilst you're attacking, it becomes a throwable, which is something you definitely have to get used to, but it's still pretty damn cool. I don't have stealth, unfortunately, but if you do have a stealth ability, then you can throw yourself with it, which is really cool. Okay guys, I will once again be using this weapon against Dragon Folly. See how it goes? Let's see. Okay. The scythe itself is quite good, but it is a little bit slow for my liking. And it's so difficult to get used to, so no matter how fast it is, it's very difficult to understand. However, if you manage to get good with this thing, I can definitely see it being a top contender for a good weapon. As like that did 13,000 damage there. And it's just really good fun, honestly. It's nothing too versatile, but it's a very cool weapon to get. And as a Yorin drop, obviously it's going to be pretty good. As I said before, this is a Yorin weapon, so unfortunately I don't believe it has any crafting recipe. You see that it just drops from Yorin. And it is one of my favourite weapons he drops, honestly. But just, even though it's not that practical, it's such a cool effect. An incredibly cool weapon to use. And it's hard to gauge how good it is. But regardless, it's just such a cool weapon. The final item we have to review today is the Flamsteed Ring. This is one I'm extremely excited about. Many of you must have seen this by now. It's this giant mech, who has various customizations. It looks so incredibly cool. You can go small, you can change your weapon. It's just amazing. Once you use the Flamsteed Ring, you're going to need another weapon to do the attacks. You're seeing here, I'm using them. And then you can toggle between the saber or the gun. The saber's like this, it's pretty damn cool, but it's not that versatile. However, if it lets me choose it, the laser is a much better option of attack in my opinion. Additionally, as you may have seen already, you can go small, if I'm not being a dummy. And this will decrease your damage, but allow you to dodge a little bit better, which is very nice. And last but not least, I believe it has the ability to turn into a missile. There we go. It's very hard to gauge this weapon, but if you're using it like this, you're looking at potentially 700,000 DPS, which is monumental, honestly. And if you're switching to the sword, then you're looking at something slightly different. And honestly, it does more damage. You're looking at over 1,000,000 DPS if you're using it like this, which is just crazy. I won't be testing this in a boss because I already did a video judging this weapon. And in all honesty, that's pretty much everything there is. There are a bunch more weapons added within this update. I've done a Draydon video already regarding the new, charged weapons. But I just chose the weapons I thought were going to be the most interesting, and I have to say all of them were incredibly so. With that said, I have to say thank you all so much for watching. If you did enjoy, then feel free to leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. And as always, I will see you all in the next one. Peace out, guys.